This is what happens when someone decides to take on the United States Navy. On the 29th of March, 2026, a U.S. aircraft carrier was conducting a routine patrol in the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most strategically important shipping lanes in the world. Everything seemed calm at first. Then suddenly, multiple high-speed targets appeared on radar. There were only seconds to react. American sailors immediately knew this wasn't a false alarm. What they were about to face could determine the survival of the entire strike group. What happened next is exactly why very few countries are willing to directly confront U.S. naval warships. At 4:39 p.m. local time, the guided missile destroyer, USS Spruance, operating about 20 miles from the carrier, detected a series of unusual signals on its spy radar system. In just 2 seconds, the radar's command and control system ran roughly 20 million calculations to analyze the data, and every single one pointed to the same alarming conclusion: incoming missiles. The moment the threat was confirmed, USS Spruance sounded general quarters and shifted into full combat mode. Sailors rushed to their assigned stations as the ship simultaneously warned the carrier to move out of the danger zone and brought its standby engines online. Within about 90 seconds, Spruance would be at full power, racing toward the carrier at nearly 30 knots to reinforce its defensive shield. But in modern naval warfare, even a few seconds can decide everything. The electronic warfare team quickly analyzed the incoming signals and confirmed they were C-802 anti-ship missiles, commonly used by Iran. With a range of about 150 miles, these subsonic missiles travel around 610 miles per hour and carry a 364-pound armor-piercing warhead, more than enough to cause serious damage to any ship they hit. They may not be supersonic, but the C-802 has a key advantage: sea skimming capability. Flying just a few meters above the water, it's designed to evade radar detection at low angles. At roughly 150 miles out, the targets entered the ship's engagement range. The weapon of choice, the SM-2, or Standard Missile 2, the backbone of U.S. Navy air defense. These missiles can reach speeds of Mach 3.5 and have a maximum range of about 105 miles. Without hesitation, USS Spruance launched two Block 3A missiles at the incoming threats. This older, less complex version of the SM-2 is actually ideal for engaging low-flying, relatively slower targets like the C-802. More advanced missiles were held in reserve for higher-end threats. Still, in naval combat, no threat is ever considered minor. Just one missile getting through could have devastating consequences. After the first interception, the SPY radar picked up a large debris field. Several sizable metal fragments suggested parts of the missiles might still be heading toward the target. To eliminate the risk completely, Spruance immediately fired two more SM-2s into the debris zone. By 4:50 p.m., the radar confirmed all targets had been destroyed at a safe distance of 75 miles. But there was no time to celebrate. Just 5 minutes later, at 4:55 p.m., the radar detected 4 new contacts. This time, the targets were much smaller and slower than the missiles that had just been taken down. After analyzing their flight patterns and signals, the crew quickly identified them as incoming Shahed 136 attack drones. These UAVs have a top speed of around 115 miles per hour and carry a roughly 50-pound warhead. While not as powerful as anti-ship missiles, when used in swarm tactics, they can still pose a serious threat to naval vessels. A hit from one of these drones might not sink a ship, but no sailor is going to just stand there and take it. And the U.S. Navy certainly isn't going to either. In reality, these drones aren't particularly advanced technology. Because of that, the captain of the USS Spruance made a quick tactical decision: don't waste air defense missiles on them. The reasoning was simple. A modern interceptor missile can cost around $3 million, while each attack drone is only about $5,000. Using expensive missiles to shoot down cheap drones would mean the U.S. is essentially draining its own resources, which is exactly the kind of outcome Iran would be hoping for. So instead of engaging them at long range, the captain chose to let the drones get closer, creating the impression that they might actually break through the ship's defenses. The targets kept coming, and the distance quickly closed to about 10 miles. That's when he played his hand. As the USS Spruance began turning to bring its stern toward the incoming drones, it might have looked like the ship was retreating or turning away. In reality, it was doing the exact opposite. It was positioning itself for the best possible firing angle for its close-in weapon system. That system is called CIWS, a close-in defense system often considered the last line of protection for U.S. warships against threats like anti-ship missiles. But beyond that role, CIWS is also extremely effective against slow-moving drones, helicopters, and small surface targets. At around 10 miles out, the CIWS radar began locking onto each target and calculating firing solutions. The drones kept closing in, 8 miles, then 6, then 4. When they reached just 3 miles, the captain gave a short, direct order: fire. Instantly, the drones flew straight into what sailors call a wall of lead. CIWS uses a 20mm Gatling gun capable of firing between 3,000 and 4,500 rounds per minute. That dense stream of fire essentially turns the air in front of the ship into a storm of high-speed metal. As soon as one drone is destroyed, the system takes only milliseconds to shift to the next target. The entire sequence happens so fast that it's almost impossible for a human to fully process in real time. In just a few seconds, all 4 drones were torn apart, reduced to useless fragments of metal falling and drifting on the surface of the water. Once the system confirmed that all targets had been eliminated, the crew immediately notified the aircraft carrier, USS Abraham Lincoln, that the situation was under control and that they could stand down from high alert. However, Iran later claimed that the attack had successfully hit the U.S. carrier, but footage released shortly afterward told a completely different story. On the deck of the USS Abraham Lincoln, aircraft were still taking off and landing as usual, with no visible signs of any damage or attack. Even though no damage was done, Washington still chose to send a clear message: attacking U.S. warships is a serious mistake. That said, responding isn't as straightforward as it sounds. While Iran is a large and relatively visible military force, pinpointing exactly where the missiles and drones were launched from is far more complicated than most people realize. One major reason is the region itself, which has been shaped by years of ongoing conflict. On the ground, there are countless armed groups, all with different equipment and capabilities. Not everyone carrying weapons is an enemy, and distinguishing between different factions is anything but easy. To deal with this, the U.S. military relies on highly advanced surveillance technology. Have you ever thought about military satellites in orbit? Most people assume they're mainly used for GPS or global communications, and that's true. But in reality, they have another critical capability. Imagine looking at a thermal image from space. At first glance, it might look like a messy painting, with patches of blue, purple, and black. But to military analysts, it's a heat map of an entire region. The blue, purple, and black areas represent colder zones. At night, most desert regions become extremely cold due to the lack of infrastructure and low population density. And because of that, anything that gives off heat in those areas immediately stands out. A truck carrying a missile launcher, a drone launch site that was just activated, or a convoy moving through the darkness. None of them can fully hide from the eyes watching from orbit, and that's exactly what happened in this case. Using reconnaissance satellites equipped with advanced thermal imaging systems provided by France's Direction du Renseignement Militaire and the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, analysts detected unusual heat signatures in a desert region inside Iranian territory. Infrared sensors picked up a temperature difference of about 27 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly 15 degrees Celsius, compared to the surrounding environment. In a desert that cools rapidly at night, a heat difference like that doesn't happen naturally. To intelligence analysts, this kind of signal is very familiar. Hotspots like these usually point to underground activity, things like weapons storage bunkers, tunnel networks, or drone launch facilities hidden beneath the desert surface. Still, the U.S. military can't rely on a single thermal image to justify a strike. A decision of that scale always requires confirmation from multiple independent sources. That's when 2 specialized reconnaissance aircraft were brought in. The first was the MQ-9 Reaper, a long-endurance drone capable of staying in the air for dozens of hours. The second was the RC-135 Rivet Joint, an electronic surveillance aircraft designed to intercept communications and radar signals. Both were deployed for ISR missions, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. While the MQ-9 Reaper is also capable of carrying missiles and precision-guided bombs, during the March 9 mission, Both aircraft were focused solely on verifying the locations identified by satellite. As the Reaper circled above the target area, it captured high-resolution imagery continuously over a 27-hour mission before returning to its base in Djibouti. The images it collected were remarkably clear. Even from an altitude of 50,000 feet, analysts could identify multiple tunnel entrances, transport routes, and signs of underground infrastructure. At the same time, the RC-135 rivet joint, with around 30 specialists operating its electronic intelligence systems, intercepted communications linked to those same locations. The signals clearly indicated that Iran was operating covert military facilities in the area. Once the targets were confirmed by 3 independent sources, satellite imagery, aerial reconnaissance, and intercepted communications, the U.S. military made the call to act. At approximately 3:10 a.m. on the 30th of March 2026, the USS Abraham Lincoln, along with its escorting destroyers, USS Spruance and USS Michael Murphy, launched an operation that many officers later described as a symphony of destruction. On the carrier's flight deck, F-35C Lightning II stealth fighters roared to life and launched into the night sky. The F-35C is the carrier-based variant of the F-35, built specifically for naval operations. It has a top speed of about Mach 1.6, nearly 1,200 miles per hour, a combat radius of over 650 nautical miles, and is especially known for its stealth capabilities and highly advanced sensor fusion systems. Meanwhile, crews aboard the USS Spruance and USS Michael Murphy were completing final preparations to launch Tomahawk cruise missiles. If everything went according to plan, the Tomahawks would strike first, taking out surface defenses. Just minutes later, the F-35Cs would move in and drop bunker-busting bombs to destroy the deeper underground facilities. Then the operation reached its critical phase. The F-35Cs, flying at a cruise speed of around 700 miles per hour, would take about 25 to 30 minutes to cover the 300-mile distance to the target. The Tomahawk missiles, traveling at roughly 550 miles per hour, would arrive slightly later, just a few minutes behind the fighters. That timing was intentional. At exactly 3:15 a.m., the USS Spruance and USS Michael Murphy launched their missiles simultaneously. Each ship fired 6 Tomahawks, 12 cruise missiles in total, shooting out of their vertical launch systems and streaking into the night. Once airborne, the missiles quickly accelerated and headed toward their first pre-programmed waypoint. From that point on, a specialized system known as the Mission Library took over navigation. This mission library is prepared in advance by strategic planners before the operation begins. It contains every waypoint the missiles will follow as they move deep into enemy territory. These routes are carefully calculated based on multiple factors, including terrain and elevation, enemy radar coverage, environmental and weather data, and the locations of air defense systems. Because of this, Tomahawk missiles don't fly in straight lines. Instead, they follow complex, curved paths designed to avoid detection. If you were to watch one in flight, you'd notice its altitude constantly changing. That's due to a guidance technology called TERCOM, terrain contour matching. TERCOM allows the missile to compare real-world terrain with digital maps stored in its memory. Using an onboard altimeter, the missile continuously measures its distance from the ground in real time. Because of this, Tomahawk missiles can fly close to the terrain, maintaining an altitude of just 50 to 80 meters above the ground, low enough to avoid radar detection. They can sustain this flight profile across their entire range of about 1,000 nautical miles, quietly closing in on their targets before the enemy even realizes what's happening. But how do these missiles know exactly where they're going? It sounds like a simple question, but the answer involves a highly sophisticated chain of technologies. As the earlier thermal images showed, much of Iran's territory, especially desert and semi-desert regions, lacks distinct features that are easy to recognize from above. There aren't many large cities or obvious landmarks, just vast stretches of dry land extending for hundreds of miles. That's where a second key technology comes into play. It's called Digital Scene Matching Area Correlation, or DSMAC. This system allows detailed satellite images of the terrain along the missile's flight path to be preloaded into its mission library before launch. As the missile flies over enemy territory, it doesn't rely solely on GPS coordinates. Instead, its optical sensors continuously capture images of the ground below and compare them to the stored reference images in its mission library. If the terrain features match, the system confirms the missile is on the correct path. If there's any deviation, the onboard guidance computer automatically adjusts the course. Thanks to this image matching capability, engineers found that DISMAC can improve the Tomahawk's accuracy by up to nearly 90% compared to older guidance methods. And on that night, the targets inside Iran became part of that impressive statistic. At exactly 3:42 a.m., Tomahawk missiles launched from U.S. warships, including the USS Spruance, began striking underground bunkers. Each missile carried nearly 1,000 pounds of high explosives, and upon impact, massive fireballs and plumes of smoke erupted across the quiet desert night. Within minutes, tunnel entrances were engulfed in flames, and the light from the initial explosions unintentionally created perfect visual markers for the next wave of attacks. That's when the F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters moved in to deliver the finishing blow. Unlike older generation aircraft like the F/A-18, the F-35 is a fifth-generation fighter designed with stealth technology, advanced sensor fusion, and highly integrated network-centric warfare capabilities. In ground attack missions, it typically carries precision-guided JDAMs or GBU series bombs inside its internal weapons bays, preserving its low radar signature as it approaches the target. Instead of using external targeting pods like older aircraft, the F-35 is equipped with a highly advanced integrated sensor suite, including the Electro-Optical Targeting System, EOTS, mounted beneath the nose. This system functions like a modern laser targeting pod, but is built directly into the aircraft, reducing drag and helping maintain stealth. EOTS allows pilots to lock onto targets using laser designation, track them via infrared, and pinpoint GPS coordinates with extreme accuracy. Once a target is locked, the smart bombs receive guidance data and head straight for their designated impact points. From high altitude, F-35 pilots opened their weapons bays and released precision-guided bombs directly into the openings created moments earlier by the Tomahawk strikes. Guided by both laser and GPS, these bombs had almost no chance of missing. Seconds later, a series of powerful explosions shook the area. Direct hits. While official casualty figures from Iran were never released, post-strike satellite imagery revealed two massive craters where large underground weapons storage facilities once stood. Even worse for Iran, the attack triggered at least 10 secondary explosions, as an estimated 30 to 50 cruise missiles stored inside the bunkers detonated in a chain reaction after being hit. In just a matter of minutes, an entire military complex, built and hidden over years, was reduced to a scorched patch of desert. And although the strike only temporarily disrupted Iran's military activity in the region, it sent a very clear message. Targeting U.S. Navy warships is an extremely costly decision.